everybody. Welcome. You're all looking healthy and beautiful today.
That's okay. Yes, anyway, I'm Emily Ullman. I'm a co-organizer of AWENiteSF, as well as Mike Boland and Tom Emrich. And so I'm here this evening as well to help this whole event come together and for us to, have a good time talking about AR and the future of spatial computing and specifically gaming tonight. Let's talk about AR and gaming. And
that's what we've got for now. So I think first up, we're going to bring up Terry. He's going to say a couple words, and then we're going to do a demo, a live demo.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
And we'll need to move that.
Yep.
Get it off. All right. So hi, I'm Terry Schuessler. I'm the Senior Director of Spatial Computing for Deutsche Telekom. So Deutsche Telekom is the largest telco in Europe and one of the biggest in the world. We're also the parent company of T-Mobile US. So you may get confused by seeing the T-Mobile logo. It's actually our brand in Germany and other countries as well. I've been with the company for about 5 years, and my focus is to really look at ways that we can leverage 5G infrastructure and edge computing technology to enable better immersive experiences. And so the intersection of AI, 5G, Edge, and XR is kind of my bailiwick. And so today we're going to show you some pretty cool stuff that we've been working with our partner company in Berlin, forwARdgame, for a couple of years now on building some innovation projects to exercise the technology, to learn from the technology, to figure out ways that we can create new experiences that were previously impossible to create using existing infrastructure and existing devices at the time. So now we're looking ahead, and we're trying to figure out, as we move from a heads-down society to a heads-up society, how do we enable these experiences to be more immersive, more robust, and more pervasive through your day? So today we see most of the work being done in spatial computing focusing on the B2B side, and that's where the quick ROI is, where you can figure out ways to take the expense of the device and the software development and make it pay for itself, in under a year. We're looking a little bit more broadly now at the consumer side of the story, trying to figure out ways that we can change the lives of all of our users and start the transition from the heads-down smartphone user who's walking down the street with their brain somehow acting like an imaginary radar and preventing them from getting killed to a much more engaged heads-up experience using head-worn devices like these Nreal light glasses that I have. So our focus is to look at how we're going to really transform the software ecosystem as well as the hardware infrastructure and the way that things are done in terms of that telecommunications technology to really go from what I would say sort of the novelty or momentary AR experiences that we experience today on mobile phones to the more time-durative hour to 3 hour use cases where I'm going to put glasses on and I'm going to go through an experience for an extended period of time to eventually having glasses on all day and maybe not even having a phone, maybe just having a battery pack with connection technology cabled or tethered wirelessly to a display device that you wear in your head. So that's really the transition that we're working towards aggressively, and we're looking at ways that we can take existing infrastructure and make it better. So that's also where we look at edge compute. So edge computing is basically a way that we can take the hardware infrastructure of the internet and bring it closer to the user. We do this by intelligently mapping out the physical locations of all the servers that are on somebody's infrastructure. So whether it's AWS or T-Mobile US or KDDI, whoever's infrastructure we're mapping. We then take that map and then we use software to orchestrate quick access to the closest physical location on the network that will provide the services that a particular application needs. And so what this does is it reduces what's called latency on the network, which means that the amount of time it takes for your request for something to happen on the network and the results to come back goes down dramatically because the distance that has to travel physically becomes less. So we're normally constrained to about 2/3 of the speed of light on average in terms of the amount of time it takes for data to travel from one point to another on the network. And there's a lot of gross inefficiency in that process. Part of it is just the hops that we have to go through. You can be in Texas and you want to connect with California and you have to go through New York. And it doesn't even make any sense, but that's how data transfers through the network because of the way that people have their hardware infrastructures connecting to each other and allowing one telco to talk to another telco and be able to go to both Google services and Amazon services from a different place. This traffic pattern is not a rational one from a user-centric, performant point of view. And so we're looking at ways that we can enable that to change. And so one of the things that you're going to see in this demonstration is the result of our efforts in this area is a company called MobileEdgeX. So MobileEdgeX is a company focused on providing a global standard fabric for accessing edge compute services. And the least jargonistic way I can say is if you have software that's running on a network piece of hardware and you want it to run as quickly and as close to the user as possible, we use the MobileEdgeX system to figure out where that closest location is, to orchestrate access to that by looking at where the user is, looking at where the map of that hardware infrastructure is, and figuring out what's going to get the data to the user fastest. And it also orchestrates turning on the software on the network, spinning up the services, and then making them available to the application. And it does it in a way that the application developer does not need to know about anything. All they need to know is a very simple API that says, I need to make this call to a function and make it accessible as quickly as possible. All the orchestration is done for them. They don't need to know anything about the user. They don't need to know what network they're on, what telco they're on, whose services they're using. It doesn't matter. And so this demonstration you're going to see today is pretty exciting because, to my knowledge, it's the first time that we've shown a multiplayer AR game running on edge compute in California. So we set up a cloudlet yesterday in San Jose, and all the data traffic that's coming from here is going to San Jose. We're doing some orchestration there, and then we're sending the results back here. And so and when we run the demo later, and when you're watching the demo, you're going to see it from a spectator point of view. And in the spectator point of view, you're going to see latency numbers that are on the screen. Unfortunately, we wanted to do this through LTE connection here, but the signal coming into the building is a little slow, so or low signal, so on all the networks. So we switched to using Wi-Fi, but I intended to show this to be a truly mobile, LTE-based, connection to the edge compute. So it works both ways. And actually, to prove a point, Tim and I, in doing a test, were able to actually run and play the game that you're going to see when he's in Berlin and I'm here in the Bay Area. So the game actually is able to accommodate some chunky latency and still work pretty well. That's part of his magic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it off to Tim, let him talk about the vision of forwARdgame and the reason why he built the game that you see today, why we were collaborating with him. And then we're going to come back, and Patrick and Tom and I are going to set up and run a demo of the game live on the stage. And Tom's going to be there, our camera operator, so you can see what's happening in AR from a spectator point of view. So let's switch over to Tim and let him get going. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Terry, please yell at me if you don't hear me well.
We can hear you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Hope you slept well. I didn't. So I'm Tim, and this guy over there. Hey, Timmy, come on, leave your video games. Go out, maybe play with your friends. Now, Timmy is a good boy. So he does. Indeed, the connected generation just isn't moving enough. What they are doing a lot is playing. And it doesn't worry them that they're not active. All they care about is play awesome games and never be bored. And they will always pick the best games for themselves. Those that are the most interesting, the most challenging, those that blow your mind and feel the most real. And unsurprisingly, for more and more young people, the classic outdoor games just don't meet those standards. And so, we need to harness the technology that created those amazing games and kept the kids at home in the first place, and come up with some smart combos of experiences that will feel like the games themselves have leveled up and unlocked new abilities. Well, this is our combo. Of course, location-based games to transform the immediate real-world environment to become, well, the battlefield. And of course, augmented reality to bring in the vivid, complex, and immersive game elements. And multiplayer to complete the experience of real interaction with your teammates and the enemies. And we're so lucky that we've got partners who help us deliver this upgrade. With our partners, we can finally start putting games where they belong, because games have got to get real, and real has no lag. And that's why we're using 5G and cloud edge computing in order to synchronize the actions and the positions of the players in augmented reality in multiplayer games. But how does this magic work? Well, obviously, real world is all about physically interacting with people and objects all around us. And a lifelike game needs to include both. But that will only be possible thanks to precise linking of augmented reality content to physical environment, and then letting everybody involved to view that content from different angles and different devices. And as a next step, we need to let everybody to be physically interacting with that content, and then let everybody see the outcomes of those interactions immediately to create the real live experience. Now that will only be possible with super low latency. Putting it all together is definitely a hard challenge, but oh God, the experience is worth it. But of course, we are just in the beginning. But we all know that the augmented reality technology is going to find its way into the glasses. And when that transition completes, every city park will become a hottest place for gamers. Every playground will become, well, the battlefield. And the word gamer will be associated with a very strong and effete person. And this is an exciting future. And we are so happy to build it. And we invite all of you to be part of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. So we're going to get the game set up, and then at the end we'll leave some Q&A time so everybody can ask questions of Tim, get a little insight in there. So Pat and Tom, if you can come over here. Tom. So what I'm doing basically is setting up two phones. I need to move this because otherwise I'm going to die. So the two phones are going to be player 1 and player 2, and Patrick is going to end up being player 2. And then the iPad is going to act as a spectator view, so you guys can see the gameplay from a third-party point of view, and you'll see the AR content. You'll see what Patrick and I are doing in terms of player interaction. On our phones, we just see the game board, and we see the controllers. Obviously, we can see each other through the camera view from the phone as well. So let me go ahead and get this one started, and we'll get that one started.
Should I go?
Yeah. So what's happening right now is the phone and the iPads are connecting to the Cloudlet in San Jose. And now we have 3 players, so I'm going to set up player 1 and set up player 2, and then he's going to set up the spectator view. Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm scanning the playing field to place the game table. You won't be able to see that until it shows up in the spectator view. In a moment. Okay. And I'm going to share the table. And we'll just get that locked in there. Good. And then you should be able to got it? Yeah. Okay, then you can hand that off to Tom.
All right.
Tom, make sure you don't cover the camera, please. Yep. Okay, and then you need to go over the other side.
Yep.
And
This one?
yep. No, you want to stand over there pointing this way so you can provide a side angle. So go around to the unmarked area. All right.
Okay.
So
Then
when
do
you're
I hit
ready.
ready?
Yep.
By the way, this is a rematch because I lost by 1 earlier. So.
Okay. So as I move my body, I'm moving my controller. Oop, and the force that I move, he just scored on me. The force that I use to move my body to hit my controller against the puck creates speed, and I can move in 2 axes. We were going to do this sitting on the stage, but the problem is that the stage is a little too small. So, and you can see you get a good workout, especially when you get beat. Oop. Now, if I hit it really hard, then I can get a power up. Oh. Oh, you got me.
Woo!
Yeah, he's scoring good on this. So we set the game to a 3-minute timer, and it's basically whoever gets the most points. Yes! And trust me, you get a workout. So part of the point of what forwARdgame is doing is building games that really take you outdoors or make you really work. There we go. Now I tied it up. Oh. Uh-oh, I'm going to score on myself. Got to be careful. So one of the issues with using a mobile phone is that I'm acting as both a controller and a viewer, and of course, I have to keep my point of view so I can see the game board while the game is going. Oh, slow drift.
Did I make it on myself?
Yeah, I think you did. So when we switch to head-worn devices, and by the way, we plan to show a head-worn version of this game in May at AWE, so it's a good reason to come, is you will be able to play the game there at the playfield, or playground, sorry. But anyway, when we go to head-worn, we'll have the ability to be much more immersed because my hands will be free and actually use my hands as an interaction device. So I could shoot fireballs or other power-up moves against him while I'm playing. I earn those power-ups by scoring, say, 3 points in a row consecutively, or maybe I lose 3 points in a row and I get a defensive power-up that helps me. So this is the genius of forwARdgame, is they've been really thinking a lot about this kind of player interaction, figuring out a way to make it a workout for people while they're also having a lot of fun. And as you can imagine, taking this two-player game and scaling it to a multiplayer experience with 4, 10, 50, 100 people playing a game at one time could be really exciting. So we've actually done work with them with the basketball game, and the basketball game actually can play quite a number of people at the same time shooting baskets to a shared basketball hoop. And the physics on the balls are all tracked through coordination on the edge, so that when the balls collide, everybody sees the same results in real time. And that's a great example where we need low latency on the network. He won by 1 point. So that's the end of that demo. And I'm tired. Thanks. All right, so why don't we have a few minutes. Let's open it up let's switch the AV over to Tim and give him a chance to answer any questions that we might have in the audience. Yeah, you can just close it off. Although Tim loves to hear his own game music over and over again. So, if anybody, I don't know if we have a floating mic. Yep, perfect. So you can ask questions of myself or Tim. Obviously, Tim preferably because he knows more about how the game was built. Does anybody have any questions at all?
Question.
Come on, engage. Oh, there's one in the back there. All right.
This isn't particularly well framed, but it is an idea.
Yeah, we have a mic, so Tim can hear you that way. Yeah.
Tim, excellent job. Thank you. For games that have, for lack of a better word, a continuous projectile, like a stream of frozen water, as opposed to objects that are being thrown, do you see any difference? And you could also, of course, throw in flamethrowers or what have you, but if you have a continuous object relative to a single thrown object, does that make a huge difference?
Wonderful question. We are experimenting with that.
Oh, hold on, Tim. We're going to bring your audio up a little because we can't hear you.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So it's an excellent question, and we are also hiring. So we are experimenting with continuous objects as well. It would all come down to segmentation. So you want to make sure that you know how and what you're rendering, and then you want to segment it, and then you want to sync it as fast as possible. And then you will still be able to create the illusion of continuation, because you will sync the segments of flowing on all the devices, and then it will look very similar.
Yeah, and also I can talk about that from the network perspective. One of the things that we're trying to do at Deutsche Telekom, and eventually to deliver it to multiple operators, is basically like predictive latency. So we can build an application experience where, let's say somebody's moving around on a phone and switching towers, and there's going to be a change in latency on the network because of that handover, or because the tower is connected, differently to the network. We can start to create an API that will allow the application to predictively behave based on the information the network's telling it.
And account for this latency on every client.
That's exactly right. So that's how we're working together as we move forward with the gaming development that forwARdgame is doing. We're looking at testing those kind of mechanisms out on our network to figure out how we can enable the user experience to be smooth regardless of the variation that happens on the network in terms of latency, because there's just going to be a natural reality of that until the whole world is a 5G hotspot, basically. Yeah.
So Nicole Lazaro from Zio Design is the next question.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You've obviously done some great exploration, or some continuing exploration, on the types of genres or the types of games that work really well with this, kind of mobile AR context. I was curious, what genres do you think have the most promise? Sort of a follow-on to that question. Basketball and table hockey have a ball that you're bouncing back and forth. Well, is there stuff that you can do that really takes advantage of the actual physical environment? Because that's part of where like Pokemon Go is, should go, or where, there's stuff like that. So what kind of genres work well, do you think?
Oh God, how much I would like to answer this, but corporate secrecy prevents me from doing that. But please believe me that this is what we're all about. Taking full advantage of real environment, real obstacles, real parts of the world that we would gladly incorporate into games. That's why the games look like pretty straightforward. Come on, air hockey, basketball, simple stuff. But essentially, the transition has started. The gaming is changing. The games are going to be back out there, and the games are going to get real. So think about anything.
Okay, if we
think about that on glasses.
So if we stick with what we've seen, then I'm one of the leading experts on emotion and play. So with basketball, you need to be able to have a little bit of a bounce off of the backboard. With ice hockey or breakout, you have to have a little English, or like pool, where you've got a little bit of a twist and a turn. Is the technology enough so that we can get a little bit of skill in the game, not simply I caught it, but I'm able to put a little bit of curve on the ball, for example? Of
course, it's all physics. It's that simple that Unity runs 60 FPS. 60 FPS is 16 milliseconds. If my local render is 16 milliseconds, and my latency is 16 milliseconds, then it doesn't really matter where I render, on a remote device or on local device. And then I'm utilizing the beautiful physics that Unity gives me, synchronize it beautifully between everybody, and I please encourage you, come by, try to beat Terry. He's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that a little bit on more. He kind of gave you a clue in his opening about the venues that you can imagine this kind of gaming experience moving to. I can freely say outdoor venues that are large spaces that people can easily move around in would be an ideal, sort of target. And absolutely, it's our intent to leverage the aspects of that real-world environment as part of the gameplay components. So, objects like trees, lampposts, things like that could become marker locations dynamically in the game. Sorry.
Garbage cans.
Mini golf, yeah, absolutely. Oh, frisbee golf, or disc golf, yeah, absolutely, yeah, totally. Or mini golf. AR mini golf would be a lot of fun, actually, and using the real world could be quite interesting, because that's where some of the fun of mini golf is, right? To simulate a real world kind of ecosystem and then put the ball through it. So it was always my vision to actually do that. The key, I think, is while the market is really in mobile, we want to build these experiences so that when you go to Headworn, they're totally different and they're much more immersive. And so now your hands become part of the experience as interaction devices. Your body movement becomes part of the experience. And it's not just you tapping a screen and flicking your Pokeball spin and all of that. Those mechanics are easy. And I speak from experience. I'm a level 2 billion level Pokemon player. But the point I'm saying is that these experiences are going to transform the way you actually think about games, because now gaming and sporting will truly start to converge at least the ones that are coming from forwARdgame. All right, cool. Hey, Tim, I know it's, 4:30 in the morning for you. So thank you, sir. Hopefully you didn't drink too much Club Mate and you're going to be able to get some sleep. Yeah, exactly. But everybody, he worked really hard to get this set up with me over the last 2 days, so please give him a round of applause.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's welcome Tom and Amy to the stage. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? That's great.
No, we need to do that one more time. Hi, everyone. How's it going? I know it's getting late. We're all tired. I don't even have a voice left.
But Amy, it's not 4:30 in the morning. I mean,
Well, this is true. What a trooper. Tim, well done. Although I get up at 4:30, so I've been up since 4:30,
Okay.
so I'm sort of tired. So, all of you who follow Tom, he's posting, but you did a really fantastic Medium post on trends to watch in 2020. So we thought it'd be a great idea. We can't go through all of them, but we thought it'd be a great idea just to kind of delve into each of those sections and really just see where we think we're going and, see how far we've gotten since you wrote that a month ago now.
great. Let's do it.
All right, so let's start with number one, because I personally was very disappointed when a company that shall remain nameless did not announce that they were going to release some AR glasses, and I think we all want them so badly, but they're just not here yet. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to start things off by first giving a nod to my Canadian singer, one of my favorite ones, Alanis Morissette. So I was trying to figure out, how do I get Jagged Little Pill into a trend? And this is exactly how this came about. No. So the first trend is the AR industry swallows its Jagged Little reality pill as it pushes the mainstream AR eyewear target out a couple of years. So I think, especially in 2018, 2019, the AR industry at large was very vocal about the fact that glasses were coming very soon. And look, at the end of the day, it would have been the perfect marketing opportunity for eyewear. Like, really, it really would. I think that's kind of what it was driving it. 2020 vision, like this is when AR glasses were going to come to the market. And when I mean AR glasses, I mean a pair of AR glasses that makes a meaningful push to really secure the deal with the mainstream that this is a device that they should adopt. And of course, we're in 2020 right now, and there are many players in the space, but yet we have still so much work to do on the consumer side, especially with the mainstream, not the early adopters, not the hobbyists, not the enthusiasts, to even be aware that glasses are a device that are coming. And so I wanted to start things off by just saying that we need to swallow this jagged little pill, this reality pill. It's rumored that this magical device that you alluded to will be coming out around 2023. I even think personally that's slightly aggressive. We still have some work to be done before we get to a point when something is debuted on stage and has immediate buy-in from the mainstream. The good news is here, and this is really what I wanted to underscore, is there are so many amazing things that are happening today, especially on mobile AR, and we saw something here just demoed that we need to, as an industry, celebrate and recognize. And so what I'm really happy about is 2020 coming, glasses not being here, and everybody level setting and looking around and saying, okay, well, what work is being done? And let's make sure that we understand how important that work is to get us to be prepared to when those multiple glasses are debuted on stage. So that's my first trend, is just it's great that there was a lot of hype. Now we're here. Hopefully the hype will simmer down a bit, and we can really focus on the work that is being done by some amazing startups and companies in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Terry alluded, part of the issue, aside from the glasses being very difficult, it's a very difficult technology to build, is the infrastructure has to be available to support it. I mean, we've made incredible strides, as is evidenced by this demo tonight. So it's exciting. So we skipped trend number 2, went right to trend number 3, that consumers will get more smart glass options than ever, but value propositions will remain unclear.
Right. So this might seem confusing now because I just talked about consumer smart glasses. But remember, what I meant from the first one was that there was this magical moment where we are all now going to be wearing our glasses in 2020. That's not to be confused with the fact that there are a number of companies like Nreal, like Focals, like Spectacles from Snap, that are really trying, Tilt 5 also comes to mind, that are really trying to get the consumer space to adopt smart glasses. And so the good news here is that we're seeing glasses that, dare I say, look like glasses. And that's a really amazing feat. Nreal in particular has, foldable arms, and it comes in different colors. I still think we're a little bit in the uncanny valley of sunglasses right now when it comes to the actual device, but it definitely looks a lot different than what we've seen in the past, especially, as a Google Glass Explorer, thinking back to 2012, 2013, and then trying the latest prototype from Nreal. It's wild how far we've come. So I definitely think that this year we're going to see consumers have the opportunity to buy glasses that look more like glasses, that really are trying hard to be fashionable. I even think it may be possible that like a Louis Vuitton might come out with a partnership from one of these guys. But the fact of the matter is that there's a couple things that are going to be challenging for these eyewear makers to really succeed. And one of the challenges is price point. And so the price point is still really not at that place that the average everyday user is going to be able to buy it. But even if that price point doesn't change, it really is the value proposition for me. And so, when I was at the CES floor, it was very clear that there were a lot of different eyewear makers that were seemingly ready, but they were selling the devices as devices that could do so much. When you're not able to fully articulate the 1 or 2 or 3 things that a consumer should have these devices for, it worries me a little bit. And so even if you could afford $700, the lack of value proposition, I think, is where it will fall down. And what does that mean? That means that who's going to adopt it is like somebody like me that just buys absolutely everything because he can't wait to wear it down the street and get reactions. So the enthusiasts, the hobbyists, the early adopters, and especially the developer community. This is where it is. Where I see the eyewear makers today, the smart eyewear makers, are looking to the developer community to say, hey, can you do what you did for the iPhone? Like, can you define the value for us? And so I think we're going to see a lot of that this year.
Well, I look at Bose frames, and that's, AR, right? It's spatial audio. And I just forget I'm wearing them as Bose, and I just wear them as my everyday glasses. And we need to get to that form factor before they really are going to be for everyday use.
Yeah, and I will say that I had the fortunate opportunity to try Focals 2.0, the next version of Focals, which is a Canadian company, and I'm blown away. I don't want to take away from how much work has gone in to try to make these devices feel like glasses, and Focals have done a lot of work on the software side to try to make sure that these notifications, because it's a monocular HUD in its offering, to be more smart in a way, like not to be in your way. And so I give them credit. We're definitely headed in the right direction. Do we have all the necessary ingredients to come together for that, trend number 1 moment? I'm doubtful for this year. Yeah.
We have a few years to go.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, got it.
All right. So VR headsets are getting all the right ingredients for stereo video pass-through, making it a Trojan horse for head-worn AR. And again, we're a long way away from that form factor, but of course, to tout our, HTC's recent announcement of XR plate with pass-through video, it's a step in the right direction. And again, looking to developers to say, all right, we have this new functionality where you really, really can have a portal into, from the real world into a virtual world. And so let's build some stories around this, and let's build some utility around this. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, is there still room to go in really making video pass through the killer experience for AR? Yes. But what we're going to be hearing a lot about this year is video pass-through at a time when we've been very focused on optical see-through. And I remember in 2015, I was at CES as a Canadian tech journalist, and I got access to the Sulon Cortex. That was my very first video pass-through experience, and it's stuck with me ever since. And what's really amazing is comparing and contrasting that experience to the Vario experience that I did at the past AWE, and seeing just how far along we've come with the necessary ingredients to make video pass-through a thing. That is high resolution, lower latency, a better processor, better GPU. And so like all these ingredients are coming together to afford the ability to use the virtual reality headsets as augmented reality headsets. And so I really wanted to stress that this is a story that we're going to continue to see this year. And what this also gives is the bonus true mixed reality, right? Which is what we're seeing here in the Vario video, which is the toggle between, real reality as it is, boring, augmented reality, getting better, virtual reality, bye, and going through all of these different reality experiences with one device. Also, here, these devices are more easily built, easily manufacturable, whereas optical see-through with waveguides is like really challenging, although we've made strides there. And arguably, you don't need to worry about the form factor, right? Because this is meant to be a device that's used in a living room, for example, or probably as you're seeing with HTC and as Vario is also seeing more in the enterprise, right? Is where we're going to be hearing things with this trend.
And as Nicole mentioned, actually we did some experiments a long time ago at Leap Motion when we had the first DK1, and our infinite developer wisdom duct taped to the front of the DK1, super high tech. And one of the ideas was, well, why don't we just use the video pass through for object recognition, to your point, to actually render dynamically objects that are in real life, but render them in the context of the game. Which is, again, so you don't break your knuckles, which is the practical element, but to actually make it more engaging. So there's a long way to go. We've got a lot of great ideas that we haven't even thought of yet. All right, 2020 will be a huge year for the immersive web as developers look to the browser for reach and adoption. WebXR, let's talk about that.
So last year in 2019, I did my 19 trends for 2019, and I noted that it would be a big year for WebAR as an opportunity for people to start to understand that the browser is a place to play. This was before I joined 8th Wall, and obviously I'm a big believer in the web and WebAR and WebVR, so much so that I joined the team since I wrote that post. But where the opportunity was real last year, I really do feel like the floodgates are being opened, so much so that we had Rock, Paper, Reality stand up here and say he's hiring a WebAR developer. I mean, that says a lot about how far we have come. Like, really, truthfully, it does. And so this year, we're seeing standards and browser updates gradually roll in. We have startups like 8th Wall that are making it possible to build WebAR and WebVR content today. And by the end of the year, everybody is going to be aware that there are two platforms in play for augmented reality content, the native app space and the browser space. And that really excites me because we need to have all engines running for this next wave of computing to really be ushered in.
And retail has really embraced this notion to be able to generate loyalty and brand experiences, on site and on location.
That's true.
And of course, my favorite topic in the world, the AR cloud will reign 5G again this year as carriers use large-scale AR activations to market networks that are getting ready. So yeah, let's talk about that.
I mean, I don't even think we need to talk too much about this. We just literally saw that in action here before. I mean, I think that, as always, the AR cloud is such a fundamental aspect of our AR future. And I'm not saying that we're only going to see it be substantiated in this way, but one of the ways that we'll get insight into, because as it may be in play in the enterprise, for example, where we may not get enough of the storytelling, we will definitely continue to see stadium and city scale and experiential events be powered by the combination of AR Cloud, which affords multiplayer, persistence, occlusion, among other things, with 5G and edge computing, right? So these two essential fundamentals that still have a journey to continue to move forward on, but are at good enough states that when they join forces, we literally get what Nexus Studio did here with AT&T and Dallas Cowboys. And so I think this is a really great 1-2 punch to demonstrate where we are going and what's possible when we have the necessary infrastructure in place.
All right. We skip to 18, because I also think that this is something we don't really talk about a lot as navigation and geo-based experiences, which will be on the rise this year, helping users get from A to B in a brand new way. And that's just sort of 1.0 of, kind of leveraging geospatial technology and understanding and awareness. So I'd love to kind of dive in even beyond navigation on this.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe that when we think about a more productivity use case for augmented reality, navigation is one of those that immediately come to mind. We already have seen Google launch their live view, so I think this already bolsters some confidence in the fact that AR and wayfinding and AR navigation is already a thing. But I suspect that we will continue to see navigation, whether it be in car with heads-up displays, whether it be other apps like Uber or Yelp or TripAdvisor that leverage AR in a similar way that Google has for outdoor spaces. But one of the things I'm really hopeful for is really indoor navigation, because this is really where AR sings. We have outdoor navigation from a 2D perspective, but how do you get from point A to point B in an airport, in a mall, in a stadium?
CES. Oh my gosh,
Or
CES is torture.
Or CES. I love that little ambiguous little dot that they give you, and then the game you play. But you're right, yes. So I think indoor navigation and wayfinding, malls in particular, I'm hearing a lot of desire, and we're seeing some solutions that utilize RGB cameras, that utilize ultra wideband and beacons and radar. There's a number of ways. Many of the AR cloud startups can afford this. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. On top of it, there's a lot of room to play with geo when it comes to augmented reality, and where geo-based augmented reality experiences can really emphasize the need to be at a physical location at a specific time, which is kind of ironic because when you think about augmented reality, you think, you have that movie short film Sight where the guy walks in and his entire apartment is just white and he has one chair, but he puts his glasses on and it looks like a penthouse, right? And you're like, you don't need physical things anymore. Well, actually, augmented reality can strengthen the need for something physical where you need to be at a specific location at a specific time to unlock an experience. So I think hearing a lot about geo-based AR scavenger hunts is going to be a huge thing. And just playing around with having filters, image target, world tracking augmented reality be available in specific tourist areas in the city as a new form of game, right? And so I think this is exactly what I'm hoping to hear will happen this year.
We worked on a project with one of the big malls. You'll have to be able to guess which one it is. We're around K-pop, because one of the challenges in the malls now is they have to become destinations and entertainment centers. And so the idea was that you had to, it would be around when a K-pop band was in town, and you had to save K-pop from this horrible monster, and then it would sort of drive behaviors, but drive you through the entire mall, right, as you're going through this experience, because malls, they can't get them to go upstairs, they can't get people to go down the alleys, and so this is a way for people to sort of experience the entire mall, and then of course we know what's coming next is sort of the advertising component of that. Right. But it's interesting to see how you can transform physical space using AR.
Yeah, for sure.
And after engaging in pilots, organizations look for full solutions that can integrate with existing systems and be rolled out at scale. This is something I talk about ad nauseum, so I'm going to let you talk about it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I talked about earlier in the trends post that I had was the customization of AR headsets. So I'm just going to weave that into this trend as well. We already have seen, Microsoft HoloLens be a reference designed for Trimble, for example, on construction. For the Army, it's been modified. commodified. So the coolest stories, some of the coolest stories I've ever heard in AR come from the enterprise. So much so that I hear pilots have a performance that blew the team away in making their team so efficient that they have a new problem, which is too efficient of a team, right? Because they're not prepared for a pair of glasses to reduce errors and emissions at that scale, right? And so intensely. So I have had fortunate opportunity to hear successful pilots. And successful pilots means if you can prove the ROI and glasses can be paid for themselves, that they're ready for the next step. Where I'm hearing the roadblocks is in moving from pilot to full solution. And the full solution takes in consideration how can you scale the hardware, number one, but also how do I integrate with middleware systems, like how do I handle security, how do I handle integration with existing procurement systems, and so there are a lot of nuances that need to be thought of from what I understand, and I mean, I don't even know I'm talking to you. You have more insight than I do, but maybe you can tell me how this trend's going to go. But at the end of the day, I feel this this desire to move forward with AR as a work tool, of which, by the way, this is the natural progression for glasses to first be at work before they go home to the consumer. So we need this to happen, but they need a full solution. They can't just be given a piece of hardware, maybe work with a startup that may or may not be here anymore, and then have their existing systems be orphaned from that. They need to all work together in order to fully commit. But what are you seeing in that space?
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And what I'm seeing now is that large companies are recognizing that it's time to scale. So, all of us who I kind of, it's all the ecosystem partners. So it's the telcos around, delivery and private cloud rendering, and security services, and us as hardware manufacturers, even Qualcomm with chipsets. We are now all working with enterprise on these sort of scalable solutions, and trying to not swim upstream, to really work on projects that sort of follow existing network and security protocols. And before we really start to build any scalable product, we really look at end-to-end solutions and what those legacy systems look like, including the back-end data stores. This is an entirely different type and level of unstructured data that this cannot be stuffed through an LMS system. So we're collecting the data on top. We're parsing some of the data to go through LMS systems, and then we're storing the rest to go through VR-capable analytics systems.
Yeah.
But we're getting there, actually.
Yeah,
we're getting a lot of progress.
That's such great insight, and I can't wait until we move past that and get to like BYOW, like bring your own wearable. Then we know we're really getting ready for the consumer space. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
But
and that's when we're going to need the designer ones.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
Got a lot of Prada. Okay, trend number 20. This is a big one. And it's a big issue, and we weren't going to talk about this because we ran out of time, but we got the gift of a few more minutes, so we really decided that it was important to talk about this. So growing distrust and fear around tech issues like facial recognition and deep fakes will demand new regulations and social contracts, which will shape the future of AR. Mm-hmm.
So what I really wanted to shed a light on in this piece, because there's only 20, because I was trying to be cute for 2020, is that we need to, as a community, understand that there aren't just technology challenges and on the hardware and the software side, and even just fashion and wearability challenges on the glasses, and that will cause us to be delayed for AR to be adopted on handheld, but also especially on the head-worn side. And I think we're already feeling that today with things that are out of our control. But culturally, we've already seen some very serious and conversations around facial recognition, of which is being banned for different uses in different cities, and growing fear around deepfake and fake news. And I definitely see these conversations continue to increase. And it's actually a really good thing, because we need to, as a society, come up with especially social contracts, which would allow for us to feel safe. And when I think back to 2003, when the feature phone started to get a camera, I remember, as I went back to look at that time, reading about how when the phone got a camera, it was banned in locker rooms, in restaurants. We were really afraid of having a phone on us that had a camera at all times. And I asked myself, like, why did that go away? Why did that go away? Well, obviously there was some regulations that got in place, some laws which were necessary, but also we started to have a social contract in which we all started to buy into what we would do and what we would not do, number one. And number two, we started to equalize the balance of who had these devices, which made it seem like at any time if you took a picture of me, I can take a picture of you, right? And that's a big thing to think about when only a select few of, dare I say this word, my glass holes, which they were not, had a pair of glasses. Why were they called that? They were called that because it was elitist and it was limited in its rollout. And what it caused is this imbalance of people with cameras on their face and the rest of us vulnerable in being exposed in moments that we did not want, right? Even though I would always say that I have my iPhone on in my pocket and it's pointing out at you and it got way more video than my Google Glass, right? Just to prove that actually having phones in the wild is just having phones in the wild. So I really think this is an important thing. If you're in the space and you're not thinking about the cultural implications and how to help make people feel safe, how to help with a growing and evolving conversation around privacy and trust and safety, then you're clueless on how we're going to get to the end step. And so that's where I wanted to end number 20 on the 2020 list.
I think that's great, and I think you touched on a really important point, that it's a social contract, and that it's up to us to be responsible and behave in a way that is respectful and cognizant of other people's privacy and rights and sensitivities. And it is a really big issue, and it's something that I think all of us need to be thinking about, and not just rely on, it's the powers that be or that are going to make the standards. It's not. It's really us, right? Because we have to implement it, and then the standards will be built around our own belief system and our own behaviors. So I'm glad we did have time to actually talk about that.
Thanks. Well, do we have time for questions, or did we run out of time?
I was thinking, like, maybe just to wrap it up, like, let's see if we can get like a gaming related question with both of you on the stage, so that way we can kind of like bring it full circle. What's that? How about a trend for gaming?
Trend for gaming. Okay.
Trend for gaming. I'm trying to think if I had one in there. The trend for gaming. I think that the biggest trend for gaming is most likely going to be multiplayer games for augmented reality. My hope is that we see games that, I'm not going to do a trend, I'm going to give a hope. The hope is that we see games that begin to use the world as part of the gaming mechanics. And I don't mean like from a Pokemon Go map perspective, but the other day I was sitting with some Canadian friends, and there was a lime and a salt and pepper on the table, and I thought, like, how cool would it be to use those as game pieces in an augmented reality game? And so what I would love is to see more of utilizing what's in the world as part of the game mechanics, not from a mapping perspective, but more as controllers or characters. And this doesn't need to be on the world side. It could also, as we were starting to see, and I think at the last On Night we saw Jonty show how you could use your face and your body as a controller as well. So augmented reality, I've always said, has kind of two parts. One is that the computer can sense the world, and then when the computer can sense the world, it can change your perception of the world. And so I think if you're not using both of those parts as part of the game, then you're really missing the opportunity. So if you're a game developer and you have access to recognize objects, for example, recognize faces, recognize parts of the body, use it, because that's really what's going to differentiate, AR. I hope I did you right,
Yeah, and I have
Nicole.
to say, I loved Tim's enthusiasm for also being, up all night and 4:30 in the morning for him. We know where he just said, like the world's a playground, and I love that, and I think that's great, and I think that's amazing, and also this, kind of removing that stigma of gamers, being locked in the basement, being sedentary, or not really engaging socially, and just completely changing that construct. Yeah, I think it's an exciting opportunity.
How about like Scribblenauts, but for AR?
I haven't played Scribblenauts.
So it's a game where you basically write a word and
Oh.
then that object appears.
Oh, yeah. My son used to play that all the time.
Want to play Scribblenauts in AR?
I've been wanting to build that for 6 years.
That would be fun.
Wow, it
Yeah,
happened
my
here,
son
folks.
used to love to play that.
Scribblenauts in AR.
Okay, here we go. Who's taking on the challenge? Let's have a prototype by next AWE night.
One question on proprietary versus open source, like where this is going. Do you see that the ecosystems might be broken down to one killer app on goggles, become the thing? So like the ecosystem, some of the things you're speaking of, I'm wondering if it's going to be big enough for all, or is it going to be one company, whoever that is, and suddenly a lot of things, just become like, data maps.
Right. That's like very loaded question. And for 2020, I think there's you're not going to see much change like in this year. So, but if we look at broad strokes, I think like on the headset side, and this is like one of the reasons why I joined 8th Wall. When I was thinking about what the future looks like on a headset, the dream, as Tim was even showing, is that you're wearing a headset and you're like looking around and like there's meaningful. Let's call it meaningful, not Keiichi Matsuda AR, right? And so you're looking around. There's like an AR there. There's an AR there. And I said, well, I can't see myself like downloading all these little apps every place I go. So there must be like one big, app that would have all these experiences ready to go. And I was like, oh, you know what that is? That's a browser. So that's like, okay, well then I must be very heavily reliant on like web AR. So that's kind of like a little bit of the reasons why when I'm thinking about the future, I really see how important the web is going to play. When it comes to open source and proprietary, I don't know if in 2020, I don't think we're going to see much of a change from what the landscape is right now. And to your point about, is there just going to be one person that's going to control everything? I think that even now in the app ecosystem, we have a number of players.
Good as 8th Wall. I mean, you guys work everywhere.
Right.
And like if someone does, like say like, it works here, but the other place it doesn't, and suddenly the market just goes, it leaves the open community, it leaves the thought of, equitable participating ecosystem very broad.
Right.
And you just like, you get that vertical. That's the question.
No, I think it's a good point. Definitely a good point. How are we doing, Patrick?
Let's do one more question.
Okay.
One more question. Someone take us home. Can I borrow your?
Oh, yeah.
Once we get it.
One back here.
Where? Okay.
Tom, this is mostly directed to you in that you were talking about the future of the headset and what things would look like. And the question is, the human eye is not a great sensor in terms of actual acuity. So if you're looking at optical pass-through, what makes it work is our brain. Our brain is the GPU that makes this thing work. Versus video pass-through, I mean, if I'm looking at this guy, okay, I know that because there he is. But would I really prefer to have a camera tell me what the camera thinks he looks like? I think that's a question.
Okay. Well, okay. So first off, I will like go on record that I am not an engineer and I don't build optics and photonics. And I really realized that when I was at SPIE, where I was surrounded by just geniuses that were literally breaking the laws of physics. So from what I gather, your question is like why would we want to see a copy of the world where that copy is dictated to us because we're still looking at a screen versus utilizing optical see-through where we're just seeing light and our brain has to interpret the light, right? Okay, so I think the answer is that it won't be one or the other. What I'm saying is that I'm more bullish on seeing video pass-through come together, perhaps, especially for I'm more bullish on seeing video pass-through come perhaps earlier to the mainstream for the highest quality, fidelity, augmented reality experience with the widest field of view. right? And so will we continue to use video pass-through? I guess time will tell. I think the holy grail is optical see-through. But as I said in my 2020 trends, from spending time with the community, the photonics and optics community, they're literally breaking the laws of physics. Like literally, like Moore's law does not abide by what they're trying to create. They literally have to break reality to create a device that shows you another reality. It's so meta and mind-blowing, which is amazing. Whereas video pass-through seems to be more aligned to the journey that we're used to because we're utilizing screen technology, right? So I think that's I think more than a question, it's just a good point. It's a good point that in one augmented reality experience, the machine is still going to be telling us what's in front of us in a much more aggressive way than optical see-through, where we're using our brain in a much different way for computing. Good point. Very good point.
Unless we're all in a simulation right now, and then it doesn't really matter.
Oh, this is a good place to end now.
There we go.
Yeah.
And scene.
And Neo. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Mr. Boland.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks. Have a good evening.